Young woman, you can never make it from this business. Listen, you both, I will make it.
Buy your sweet roasted corn here. Sweet corn here. That looks delicious. Yes, we'll take 3.
Young lady, you think you can make it from this business? Never, never. You can't make it. See, you better join us on our business to make it. The earlier you join us, the better for you. Which business is that? It is not what you think.
The new golden hookup business. Come on, we'll tell you about it. Tell me. The business is simple. Join a young guy, spend the day, and he buys the whole thing. After spending and enjoying your day in the hotel room, after enjoyment, you will still collect some money to go home with and enjoy yourself. Never. God forbid I can't do such kind of thing. Do it for money, that means you don't want to get rich. I can, but I won't. I'm proud of what I do. For me. Come on, join us. I can't join you. I am contented with what I have.
They said she would die poor. They said the girl who smelt of charcoal smoke and morning prayers was too stubborn, too simple to survive in a city where shortcuts were currency and dignity was a luxury that only the naive still believed in. They laughed at her, they gossiped about her, they plotted against her, they even stole from her. But what they never understood, what they could never see through the smoke of their own jealousy, was that every prayer Victoria whispered into that fire was writing a story they were not yet wise enough to read. And by the time they finally understood what she had been building in silence, it was already far too late for them. Port Harcourt, they call it the Garden City, a place where oil money perfumes the air, and the distance between the rich and the poor is as wide and as deep as the Niger River itself. In this city of glitter and grease, of big dreams and bigger consequences, lived a girl named Sandra Boniface. She was 22 years old, third-year business education student, University of Lagos State, and she owned exactly 3 blouses, 2 skirts, 1 pair of sandals, with a cracked left sole, 1 wrapper, and a faith so unshakable it unsettled people who had no reason to be afraid of her. Sandra was not born into poverty by chance. Her father, a retired government schoolteacher who now farmed a small plot in Calabar, had pressed 1 scripture into her memory so early that she could recite it before she could read full sentences. The hand of the diligent shall bear rule. He never owned a car, but he never owed any man a single kobo, not once. Her mother sold fresh pepper and tomatoes at Calabar Central Market until her knees could no longer carry her from stall to stall without complaint. And from that mother, bent at the spine but unbroken in spirit, Sandra inherited something no school could teach and no thief could steal: the belief that your hands, offered honestly to God and to the world, will never come up permanently empty. So Victoria worked. Before 5 p.m. every Monday to Saturday, while her roommates still chased sleep beneath their mosquito nets, she was already crouched at her small roadside stove at the corner of Aja Junction, frying roasted corn, hot golden ears of corn for early morning office workers, bus drivers, and market women who needed something warm and filling before the great grinding city swallowed them whole. Every Sunday, after the last Amen echoed in her church and the congregation spilled cheerfully into the afternoon sun, Sandra walked home, sat on a low stool in her small room, and braided women's hair from midday until the last light of evening, patting, threading, and weaving with hands that never stopped moving, never stopped praying, never reaching forward. In 12 months of this life, she had saved enough to pay 2 semesters of tuition, buy her textbooks second-hand from a final-year student who was leaving campus, and still send a little money home to her mother in Calabar. It was not a glamorous life, but it was hers, completely, honestly hers. The problem with people who build things in silence is that they make noise lovers deeply uncomfortable. Sandra's classmates, particularly a girl named Chidinma and her tight circle of 5, wore designer footwear that cost more than a semester's tuition. ate lunch in the faculty restaurant with money that no student bursary had ever touched, and carried themselves with the confidence of women who had found an easier path and were proud of it. Everyone on campus knew how they funded their lifestyle. No one asked out loud. At first, they only whispered about Sandra. That roasted corn girl, is she not in level 3, carrying herself like she's somebody special? Then the whispers sharpened into words. Then the words became a public spot. One Tuesday afternoon, Sandra crossed the Faculty of Business Sciences with a basket of unsold roasted corn over her arm, her blouse carrying the honest warm smell of charcoal and morning work. Chidinma's group sat beneath a tree near the faculty gate. A girl called Blessing, the loudest of them by natural gift and choice, raised her voice across the open space. "Sandra, come and sell us roasted corn. We pity you, the village girl who thinks a fine corn will make her somebody." The laughter that followed could have knocked a smaller woman off her feet. Victoria looked at them, said nothing, walked on. But something cracked inside her chest. Not her faith, no. Something softer than that. The tender part of every human heart that still wants, even when it knows better, to be liked, to be seen, to belong. That night, she cried quietly into her pillow so her roommates would not hear. And that quiet cracking sound, that was the beginning of everything, because jealousy allowed to ripen without correction stops being personal. It becomes a plan. The plan Chidinma formed was simple in its cruelty, which is often the most dangerous kind. She had seen months earlier, during a brief season when she and Sandra had moved in the same orbit of tentative friendship, exactly where Sandra kept her savings, inside a sealed envelope tucked into the pages of her Bible beneath the mattress on the left side of her bed. Sandra had not tried to hide it. She trusted the people around her. Chidinma stored the knowledge away like a blade she intended to use later. She recruited Blessing and 2 girls from the same hostel block, Ada and Fumi, and they laid their plan with the cold efficiency of people who had convinced themselves that their target deserved whatever happened to her. The first Sunday, Sandra returned home early and unknowingly foiled them. The second Sunday, a neighbour was home all afternoon and they lost their nerve. But on the third Sunday of August, the corridor was silent. The roommate had gone home for the weekend, and Sandra had left at 8 o'clock in the morning for a hair braiding client in D-Line who needed to look beautiful for a family wedding. They went in, they found the Bible, and inside it was 60,000 naira, every single note, and before sunrise, every naira built on 18 fingers and stubborn faith. They divided it and left. No mess, no noise, just absence where trust had been. When Sandra returned that evening, still humming a worship song under her breath, her hand reached under the mattress with the ease of habit and found nothing but the flat weight of the mattress itself. She checked again, slowly, and again. And then she sat on the floor of her small room, still holding the empty Bible against her chest, and did not make a sound for a very long time. She reported it, not because she believed in miracles from a system that struggled to look fully at a young woman with no connections and no sponsor standing at its counter, but because her father had taught her, do not let a wrong go unnamed. Even if no man hears it, heaven is always recording. She went to meet an officer. The officer wrote something in a register and told her to come back. She went back 3 times in 2 weeks. Each time, nothing. Meanwhile, word spread on campus the way bad news always does in small communities, with speed and with a kind of relish that people will not admit to. Students whispered that Sandra's precious savings had been stolen. A few laughed. A few felt genuine pity but said nothing. Some privately suspected Chidinma's group, but weighed their suspicion against the cost of involvement and chose silence. Sandra received a letter from the university bursary. Failure to remit outstanding semester fees within 3 weeks will result in suspension of academic records. 3 weeks? She had nothing. She began to pray with a desperation she had never known before, the kind of prayer that is less a request and more a desperate grip on God's robe in the back. Some nights she did not eat. She still rose at 5 a.m. to fry roasted corn. She still braided hair on Sundays, but now every naira earned was swallowed immediately by daily survival, and the tuition deadline moved closer each morning like a wall she could see, but could not stop. And Chidinma passed her in the faculty corridor every single day, and looked through her as though she were made of air. It was during these long, grinding weeks that Sandra's destiny helper began moving in her direction. His name was Pascal Amadi. He was finishing his final year in electrical engineering. His lecturers knew him for his quiet, unhurried precision. His friends knew him for a peculiar habit. He paid close attention to things that everyone else walked directly past. On a Thursday evening near the campus security post, he saw Sandra sitting on the low wall with the posture of someone who has run completely out of words. Not crying because she was past tears, just staring into the empty distance with the look of a person doing difficult internal mathematics about whether the life they were living still had a future worth calculating. He sat beside her. He did not introduce himself or ask her name. He said, "You are the girl who sells roasted corn at Arja Junction." She looked at him. "I pass there every morning on my way to the early lab," he said quietly. "You are always praying before you light the fire, always, even in the rain." Something about being seen, truly seen, not as an object of mockery, not as a subject of pity, but simply as a person whose habits someone had noticed and kept in quiet respect, broke something open in Sandra's chest. She told him everything, all of it. The savings, the robbery, the police station, the bursary letter. 3 weeks to the deadline. Pascal listened without once interrupting. When she finished, the pause between them held the weight of someone thinking carefully before they speak. Finally, he said, "Give me 1 week." She didn't know what that meant. She didn't ask, but there was something in his voice, not bravado, not performance, the weight of a man who measures words before releasing them. What Sandra could not know was that Pascal had already heard pieces of this story. A friend who lived in her hostel block had seen Chidinma and her group entering Sandra's room on that Sunday in August. He had said nothing at the time, frightened of Chidinma's family name, but he had told Pascal. And Pascal quietly, without drawing attention, had spent 2 weeks gathering the thread ends of evidence. A witness statement, hostel security records, and a transaction receipt showing a significant cash deposit made by Chidinma at a student cooperative that same Sunday evening. An amount that, with troubling precision, matched Sandra's stolen 60,000 naira. He had already contacted Dr. Amara Ease, a lecturer who sat on the university disciplinary committee and who was known to be the kind of woman who took injustice as a personal insult. The week Sandra sat on that wall and gave her silence to a stranger's care. The machinery of justice had already been set in quiet motion. 7 days later, Sandra was summoned to the Office of Student Affairs. She arrived expecting another dead end, another form, another officer who couldn't quite find the time. Instead, she found Pascal already seated beside Dr. Amara Ease at a formal table. She found Chidinma across from her. Arms crossed, the expensive confidence she usually wore now showing its first fractures. She found a written, signed witness statement. She found bank transaction evidence photocopied and time-stamped. She found, for the first time in weeks, the faint, fragile sensation of the world righting itself on its axis. The hearing lasted 2 hours. When it concluded, Chidinma and Blessing were suspended pending full investigation. Ada, crushed beneath the weight of what she had done, had already confessed privately to the hostel warden that very morning before the hearing even began. The recovered funds, all 60,000 naira, were to be returned to Sandra within 5 working days. But the revelation that reached deepest into Sandra's chest was not about thieves or evidence or institutional justice. It was the moment she looked across that room at Pascal, this composed, unhurried young man who had spent an entire week fighting a battle on her behalf without once being asked, without announcing his intentions, without asking for her gratitude in advance. And she finally understood, as if hearing it for the first time, what her grandmother's old proverb had always been pointing toward. Onye wetara oji, wetara ndu. He who brings cola brings life. Here he was, standing near a door, holding papers, changed nothing about himself, just showed up. Even with the money returned, even with the disciplinary committee,
that a person's true head reveals itself. When people are hungry for what you have, your peace, your reputation, your end respect, the heat of that hunger will reveal exactly who they are.